Welcome, fellow sports buds. It's the week 5 power rankings in the NFL. Let's jump into it. We're going to start out with our number 5 picks of the week. Start out with you first, Tony, Mr. Tony Parlay Reyes. Who is your number 5 in the NFL?
Well, Chris, I literally just changed it as you were giving that intro, so you guys can know how much faith I have in that fifth pick. I'm sorry, Bills Mafia, you are not in my top 5. Number 5 will be Kansas City Chiefs.
All right. Fairly decisive win over Nick's Dolphins, and yet that doesn't even earn him a top 5. Fair enough. All right, we'll jump to you, Nick. Who is your 5 for week 5?
My number 5 for week 5 is the Miami Dolphins. Unlike Tony, that win was convincing enough for me to move the Bills up into my top 5 and move my Dolphins down to 5.
Ditto. Jumping back to myself, I also have the Dolphins at 5. But like Tony, I had a hard time deciding who that number 5 was. But I think we talked about it in our week 4 recap episode. I just think that the Dolphins are in a weird spot where their defense, I don't think this is necessarily going to be the trend for them. I see like they're going to get better on defense. I don't see them getting worse or staying the same. Like Vic Fangio is a good coordinator, and that's why I have the Dolphins at 5. Like I think that defense will figure it out. Talked in previous episodes. I think their offense, in terms of just chemistry amongst teammates, they're the best you can be right now, and so no notes on offense. Defense, figure your shit out. Number 4, Tony, back to you.
I got my Cowboys number 4. Bounce back, strong win against Belichick and the Patriots. They're looking like they have all the pieces in place. They figure out how to put them all together. They're really going to be tough to stop. They're looking really talented.
Nick, how about yourself?
I'm right there. I'm right there with you, Tony. I got the Cowboys at 4. Big test this week, though.
Agreed.
I do not have my Cowboys in the top 5. They still have some proving to do after that Cardinals game. I have no doubt that they'll be back in my top 5 eventually, but they got to stop doing that. We've talked about it with Mike McCarthy. He's now had it where he's done it with the Broncos, he's done it with the Commanders, he's done it with the Cardinals. Stop having those shit the bed games. Play with some consistency, for the love of God. All right. Number 3. Going around again. Back to you, Mr. Tony Parlay Reyes. Who's your 3?
I had the Dolphins at number 3. I thought that I looked at that game, I guess, a little differently than both of you guys. I think that the Bills kind of ran it up on the Dolphins in the second half.
A little bit.
I think they did. I think it was to send a message to divisional opponent. I understand why they did it. I think that there was a one-time thing. I think it was a very creative defensive game calling by McDermott. It was almost like an amoeba defense where they were confusing Tua with the quick releases. I think that works one time. I don't think that ever works against Tua and McDaniel again. Second half, they became one-dimensional because they were down like 20. So I think what I took away, Van Ginkel, that guy's better than Bradley Chubb. That dude is better than Bradley Chubb. That is your pass rusher on the Dolphins. Yeah. You get him paired with
Jalen
Phillips. I like that combination a lot. So that's my takeaway. The Bills, they needed this win. That's what Nick told us. They needed this win. I wasn't as impressed with it as you guys, but it was a solid win. I'll give them that.
Running up the score, you say? Wouldn't know anything about that. Nick, who do you have at 3?
I got that team. I got the team that just watched beat my Dolphins. I got the Bills.
I'm actually shocked.
I mean, I had lots of conversations this weekend with Bills fans, and they were basically saying, if you take out that Jets game, I know, but I can agree with it because I'm like, okay, if you could take away that Jets game, I'm just taking away that game I just watched right now. you look at those teams, I think the Bills have greater chemistry at the moment. So I'm going to have them at number 3.
I get that. And to be fair to the Bills, like they have injuries on defense as well. They have just kind of a lacking pass rush at the moment, and they have some people that are eventually going to get back to the team like Von Miller that probably going to change games a little bit. So credit to Nick. He was objective, gave some credit to the Bills. I respect that. My number 3 was the Chiefs. Like they're just... That Jets game to me was not as close as what the score indicated. I think it's another case of I need to coin this term eventually of just the Chiefs being cats playing with mice. Like they're playing with the mice. They don't care. They only care about rings at this point. Yeah. They are that good.
They're like an NBA team.
Yeah.
That only cares about the playoffs because they know they're going to be there.
Like they're doing the load management, NFL style, basically. So, but yeah, I just like in terms of the Chiefs, they're playing their game, they're doing what they do, but like I don't think they're playing it exceptionally well at this point. They will eventually, don't get me wrong. I have a couple other teams I just think are playing way better right now than them. So, Tony, back around to you. What's your number 2?
Number 2 is the Eagles. The Eagles. They probably shouldn't have beaten the Commanders. I rewatched that game, and they probably shouldn't have won that game. I think that I want to start a petition. You are no longer Riverboat Ron if you're not going to go for 2 in that situation. Like, come on, dude. Your defense gave up like 20 points in the second half, and you have a chance to win the game by 2 yards. Like, you have to go for 2 in that situation. But impressive. Credit to the Eagles. They made the plays they needed to make. What's his name? I forget the other receiver, not AJ Brown. He made some great catches. Devin Smith or Smith, whatever. Great catches. Devontae Smith. Great catches downfield. Thanks, Nick. Jalen Hurts. It doesn't look like last year. They are 4-0, and I give them credit, but their team doesn't look like last year. It's probably going to take some time to gel with the new offensive and defensive coordinators, but their line play is just really, really difficult to deal with. Like, it's going to be tough for teams to deal with those offensive and defensive players.
Nick, you're number 2.
I also have the Eagles on this because I completely agree with you with everything you were saying, Tony, but based on the 2 undefeated teams left, they're the lesser of the 2, so I got them at my number 2.
All right. I have the Niners at 2 in my week. I actually threw up a 3 there. 2. Niners at 2. They're awesome, man. And usually they start much slower out of the gate in seasons than this. So, like, if they can stay healthy, they're a juggernaut right now. I think Christian McCaffrey is an MVP contender right now. Yeah. He is that damn good.
How many touchdowns did he have last week? Was it like 4 or 5?
I've lost count. He just scored another touchdown. Oh, and another one. CMC though, he's killing it. And just to think of all the complementary weapons you have aside from him on offense, like that just scares me. But I think you're going to have a game this weekend between the Cowboys and the Niners that's going to just be a true fucking benchmark for the NFC. Excited to watch that. So back to Tony. Time for the number 1. Tony, who do you got at number 1?
I got the Niners, man. Just to double on what you're saying, they don't have any weaknesses. I watch them and there's like nothing. There isn't like anything where I'm like, because I'm like, oh man, this is the team. Like the Cowboys are gonna complain them. Like, what can they take advantage of? They got no weaknesses. Like everything is so solid on that team. Maybe the secondary isn't as good as it has been in past years, but they got little to no weaknesses. So well coached. Christian McCaffrey in that offense is like a perfect fit. Like that's why Shanahan traded for him. They have no weaknesses. I think they're a cut above everyone in the league right now.
It's so weird seeing a team where the QB is such a fucking afterthought to
Yeah.
everything going on with them, but
Yes.
they're doing it. So, Nick, your turn. Number 1. Who do you got?
I'm right there with Tony again. I got the Niners as number 1. I think just the way they're playing right now, it's. My only question is, have they really had a true test before this upcoming week? I don't know. But I think this week should be a really good game, and we'll see.
So, to riff, I guess, into my number 1 pick, I think the Niners, a lot of the credit they're getting is just, it's a resume for them. We've seen them do it before. We've seen them do it with different quarterbacks. We kind of learned what to expect for them. So when we see them gelling this well, this early, like, yeah, of course, people that watch the NFL are going to take note. And so that leads me into my number 1 pick. I have the Eagles just because of that resume, because like all last year, I doubted them week after week after week after week, and they proved me wrong. And even with this Commanders game, should have lost, yes, but they're doing the same thing they did last season of just pulling out these wins week after week, and essentially that's what championship teams are when you look back on it. It's just they won a lot of games they probably shouldn't, but they did it. They overcame the adversity even against the shitty teams that kept it close. That's what makes championship teams, and I think the Eagles are just, they're rolling with it, so I can't take that away from them. They're at number 1.
I mean, you could be right. I think what you're saying is a big reason why everyone was so upset that Brock Purdy got injured in that NFC Championship game so early. Like there are a lot of people that, I mean, I hear it too. Like they have a different view of the NFC, and it's just Eagles Niners to them, and Dallas Detroit is like on a different tier. That's fine, but I hear that same conversation that Eagles team is on a different level because of that. And you could be right. Well, they are terrifying if they do put it together like last year. They are a problem, but that is a matchup that we want to see too. I think they play in the regular season as well. Is that Niners offense against that Eagles defense, and the other way around as well.
Yeah, no, like Cowboys Niners can easily be an NFC Championship preview. Eagles Niners can easily be an NFC Championship preview. Hell, even Eagles Cowboys can very easily be an NFC Championship preview. So like there are some just exciting regular season games this year that I think are going to have some big implications for the playoffs coming up. So
I agree.
That's what you love to see. All right. That is the week 4 leading into 5 power rankings. I'll eventually get this right of how you classify it. But I'm Chris Billings. That's Tony Parlay Reyes. That's Nicholas Nicopedia Kerr. Everyone, have a good night. Enjoy some football.
Thanks for watching the Sports Budz. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe.